Salamo Alikom Wabarakatuh. Over here I'm gonna show you guys how to overclock your computer. As you can see right here, give me a second. It says 3.2 gigahertz and over here is 2.4 gigahertz, which means that I made a 2.4 gigahertz go as fast as a 3.2 gigahertz CPU processor. It's a quad core. What you first gotta do is look up your RAM model. Just give me a second, because you need to figure out the timing table and the speed. Which mine is right here. This is the model of my RAM. Just look it up on the internet and you should find all like the memory type, capacity, pins. What you basically need to know is the data transfer rate, which is right here, and the timing. Make sure you copy all this down. And this right here. Okay, so after you figure out all this information, let's restart the computer. But first you need to go into the BIOS of the computer, which I'm going to do right here. Usually by pressing delete. I don't recommend anybody doing this except for the people who know what I'm talking about. So as you can see here, I actually have a gigabyte motherboard, so it's a little different. Maybe your motherboard is probably different. So what you want to do is you want to go into the CPU settings and RAM settings. As you can see here, here is my motherboard. I set the multiplier right here to 8. 9 for some reason didn't work. It's kind of like a trial and error. Like you gotta keep trying till it works. Now remember when I said to copy down all the timing table and everything? Well, next to it actually, first of all, next to it actually says what the megahertz you can actually multiply by. Like as for example, as you saw earlier, you want to rewind the video just to look at the timing table that I talked about. It says 400 megahertz, 266 and something something. So first, what you want to do is the transfer rate. You gotta remember what the transfer rate, which I highlighted a little bit a while ago in the website, which I said it was 800 megahertz, which see over here, it already tells you, in my motherboard actually tells you what the normal transfer rate is, and over here is actual transfer. Like for beginners, you want to have the transfer rate the same thing. You know, maybe later on you'll learn something new. So basically over here you can change what the transfer rate is, but you want it to be the same way as you saw it, which is the normal. So we'll just leave it as 800. So afterwards you want to decide which megahertz you want to multiply by. Like for example over here is CPU host frequency megahertz is 400. Now when I looked at those three values, which is the timing table, it says one of them says 618 and then 400 megahertz. So if you decided to multiply your CPU by 400 megahertz, because you have to like choose one of the values. You have 266 on my RAM, it's 266 something and 400. So I decided to multiply mine by 400, over here by 8, so you get 3.2 gigahertz. So over here you have 8 and 400. So next to the timing table, you actually got to set all these values right here, 6, 6, 6, and 18. After you do all this, I basically just went on Google and saw what other people use as a voltage in order to make their CPU as fast as 3.2 gigahertz, and set it as 1.33 volts. So after you do all this, you want to save and exit. So F12, F10. Basically, your computer should, turn on. If it doesn't turn on, it means you did something wrong. And it'll probably just reset by itself and reset all the values, so it's not going to damage your computer. Well, I don't want to scare anybody, but if you do things right, like don't do this if you don't know what you're doing, because it will burn your processor and whatever it is. You have the graphics card too, but we're not dealing with that. If you want to overclock it, so anyways, after everything turns on, what you want to do is you want to download a software called Prime 95. This actually stresses the processor and the RAM. Like it makes it, if in like regular English, it makes it work so hard that the temperature goes up. So it sees if the computer can handle the overclocking. But I would basically research what Prime 95 is. I don't really do that much research. I just downloaded it and turned it on for like half an hour. But usually people do it for 24 hours to see if the computer still turns on. And usually the processor goes up to 70 degrees Celsius. That's the normal temperature for it. But the Prime 95 test is going to actually... So I'm going to put the link on the YouTube video. That's my Islamic program. Okay. Hope everybody can see this from the video. My camera's low. So what you want to do is, let me see, it's white. Why is it white? It's so weird. You have to, from the camera angle, there we go. So here's 3.2 gigahertz. Here is the temperatures for all the components right here. Mine's actually going on, CPU is 47 degrees. Each core is going on 63 degrees Celsius, 60 degrees Celsius. And when you run the Prime 95 test, which I have it somewhere in the computer. Let's see, Prime 95. But this is, yep. Will actually go up to 100 degrees Celsius. So over here, as you can see, everything is rising. 87, 85, 91. This basically stresses your computer. That's after everything, you got everything done. So basically a recap of everything is, what you want to do is you want to look up at the RAM, and everything, see the timing table, choose which megahertz you're going to multiply by, and yeah. Salamo Alikom.